Hi, Misha here, and recently looked at this helicopter from the French Navy, the AS321 Super Frelon. This was their transport helicopter for 40 years, and today we're going to look at what replaced it. This is the NH90 from Airbus helicopters. And much like that Super Frelon, this is a 1/7/2 scale diecast model from Altaya, who's really good about delivering helicopters. Well, the NH90, known in the French Navy as the Cayman, dates back to 1985. At that time, NATO allies, France, Netherlands, West Germany, Italy, United Kingdom, were looking to the future, to the 1990s, and to the need for a new, modern battlefield transport and naval anti-ship, anti-submarine helicopter. So basically something that could be a battlefield combat and a naval transport and attack helicopter. And so several specifications were laid out. But in 1987, Britain would drop out, leaving the 4 other nations. But then, of course, the end of the Cold War. But the project wasn't over. In fact, in September of 1992, these 4 nations would sign an agreement for design and development, giving birth to NHIndustries, which was a partnership between Aerospatiale, soon Eurocopter, Augusta Westland, later to be Leonardo in Italy, and Fokker in Germany. Throughout 1993, 1994, this would be designed, and the first prototype, named PT-1, would fly on December 18th of 1995. It would be followed by PT-2 in March of 1997, and PT-3 in November of 1998. And development in the 90s was slow, but at least it was progressing for a few different reasons, namely budget, post-Cold War. The funding wasn't often there. Also, this isn't the time of the Eurofighter being developed and other projects. And in addition, this particular design was running into developmental issues. Not surprising, because it was a pretty ambitious project. This was the first helicopter designed to basically fully meet NATO specifications, and it was designed to meet the needs of all of its customers and to be highly customizable, configurable, as well as being modern. It would have a modern glass cockpit, has 2 turboshaft engines. It was designed to operate from lows of negative 40 degrees Celsius up to highs of 50 degrees Celsius. It could operate as high as 20,000 feet. And again, it needed to be able to operate over land and sea. Nevertheless, despite kind of, a lot of obstacles and things to overcome, by June of 2000, an initial order from all 4 partner nations was placed with NH Industries for 365 examples to be split amongst them. And work was also shared amongst them. Essentially, 62% of the parts would be built, split between Airbus France and Airbus Germany. Another 32% of the parts would be built, manufactured by Augusta Westland, again later Leonardo. And the final 5.5% would be done by Fokker in Germany. So each of these would kind of make different components, but then they would be sent to assembly lines in the various nations, including France, Germany, Italy, and actually Finland would have its own production line, as well as Australia, because they would get in on the action. And at this time, there would basically be 2 general variants. You had the TTH, Tactical Transport Helicopter, and the NFH, Naval Frigate Helicopter. So land and sea versions. And each one could be easily customized. For example, the customer could choose which engines to put in, which equipment. The helicopter has a body of just under 53 feet long. It is made of composites materials for the most part, as were the rotor blades. These were composite. Has a glass cockpit. And in December of 2002, this became the first production level aircraft, or helicopter I should say, to fly with fully fly-by-wire systems. It had a 4-channel redundant fly-by-wire systems. The initial prototypes were made with mechanical backups, but these were pulled out after this point. It also had a much more useful autopilot to lessen workload for the crew. It had modern sensor suites, avionics, displays. Has a standard crew of 3, pilot and co-pilot, and then a essentially crew chief, sensor operator, cargo handler, whatnot. Its main cabin is quite large. It can carry 20 fully equipped troops, or 12 medical litters with attendants, or 2 NATO Spec cargo pallets. It can carry small vehicles, or up to 9,200 pounds in cargo. Interestingly, the cabin is air-conditioned, and it has noise dampening systems for, it's basically comfort, but also to not, interfere with sensitive operations. The fuselage, the body, was made with kind of this point. The whole system was designed to give as small of a radar cross-section as was possible for a medium transport classification helicopter. On top of that, the exhaust from the engines was filtered and cooled to lessen the infrared, the heat signature. So some consideration for stealth was given. The TTH variant could have 2 door guns, and the NFH variant could also have 2 door guns or cannons and carry either anti-ship missiles or homing torpedoes if necessary. But it's really hard to give a lot of specs on it because these were very configurable to each customer's needs. In 2001, Finland would order 20. In 2005, Australia would get in the action, ordering a total of 46 over time and being given a 47th later by NH Industries. The first to receive their helicopters would be the German Army in very late 2006. The Italian Army would receive its first helicopters in 2007. The first, and those were the TTH, by the way, the first NFH variants would be received by the Dutch Navy in 2010. And France would receive its, both Army and Navy, beginning in 2011. Now, the French would initially order 34 TTH for the Army and 27 NFH for the Navy. And then this order would be increased in 2013, 34 more. And then a final order, or at least to this point, in 2016 would be placed for 6 more. France would first deploy theirs, the Navy would, in 2014, flying them to Mali. Then in 2015, the French Special Forces would select the NH90, the Cayman, for use. And as I said in the Super Frontline video, these would be retired in 2010, and then eventually these would be what would replace it in the French Navy and do so to this day. In Germany, after the Army started to get its, the German Navy started to look at the NH90 in 2009. And then in 2013, the Government Accounting Office originally had allowed the Army to procure 122. Well, they cut this to 82 for the German Army, and then they allocated 18 of those that were going to go to the Army to the Navy, German Navy, meaning 100 were to be in service. Basically, they had to change their order there from more TTHs to NFHs. So both branches would operate this. Although interestingly, at the end of 2014, talks began about, again, upping the number by about 20 more. But yeah. Germany would first deploy theirs. They would send 4 to Afghanistan in 2013 to act as medical evacuation right on the front lines, because this was a combat helicopter, is a combat helicopter. Finland, like I said, would order some in late 2001, even having an assembly line set up in their nation. But they would have a long process. They wouldn't get theirs first until 2008, and they'd first start using them in exercises in 2009, receiving their final 1 out of 20 in mid-2015. In Finland, these would actually replace the old Mi-8s from the Soviet era, the Mi-17. Italy, too, would be a major user. It would order 60 some odd for its army of the TTH, and then 46 NFH for its navy, and 10 TTH for its navy to use as transports as well. Like I said, I started to get it as in 2007, and then its Navy started to receive the navalized version in 2011, 2012. And it would deploy a couple to Afghanistan that year, 2012, so kind of amongst the first. So these have started to go to combat zones. By 2013, over 500 were on order, and by late 2015, the 250th production NH90 was delivered to Italy as it happens. And it's estimated that over 380 have been produced as of last year, so probably bumping up on 400 by now, early 2020. So these are being produced. I don't want to say that it's been a smooth process. Oh, by the way, Australia, like I said, they ended up having 46, and they're in service now as well. I don't want to say it's been a smooth process. This was a very advanced helicopter in its day, and it still is even now. Issues started to arise as early as 2010. Germany, I've noticed their media has kind of an interesting way of looking at military hardware, but some problems were alleged there that turned out to kind of be false, but then there really were problems. They were having durability issues with especially the floor of the cabin. Australia discovered some issues with the engine. The Netherlands discovered issues after trying them out. And I remember again that the Dutch Navy had the first ones going to sea. Well, by 2014, they were discovering kind of premature corroding after really using them. Finland discovered that they just were having kind of maintenance issues and they weren't as available as they'd hoped for. Although, interestingly, early on, they had good acclaim for them. And Italy actually says that they are actually performing better than expected. And that seems to be the general thing. Once the issues are addressed, performance is as good or even better than originally anticipated. Like I said, for their trouble, Australia was given a free 47th helicopter. NHIndustries agreed to foot the bill to add extra corrosion protection for the Dutch and other naval versions. They also agreed to look at the German issues and fix them on their own dime, so they are fixing them. And really by 2016, that seems to mostly be what's going on. Although the German Navy version, known as the Sea Lion, was slated for full operations this year, last year, 2019. But for various reasons, it has still yet to enter full service, although it first flew in 2016. It's like a lot of new tech. There have been issues, but that's kind of how it goes. And one of the biggest problems is what I've said on these videos multiple times. When you have these work share programs, there becomes a bottleneck of spare parts. When assembly is done in each nation, that's great, but when the parts only come from one sole source, if that production line gets behind, you could be waiting on a certain part from Italy or France or whatever for weeks or months. So that was another complaint that some users had, was the lack of availability and backorder of spare parts. And that really doesn't reflect on the helicopter itself, but that's just how this work share production system, that's just one of the downfalls. Of course, one of the benefits is an alliance and sharing of work and cooperation and all that. But yeah, this is the NFH variant from Altaya. They also do offer the TTH variant, but I thought I kind of like naval helicopters the most myself, so I went with this one. And it's a really cool helicopter. It's got the attachments and kind of this really cool squat design. It is a very modern design. The rotors don't stick up very far, very down at the hull. Pretty heavy too. Like a lot of these larger die-cast ones from Altaya, the top and everything is the metal, and the bottom is the plastic. It does have glass in the windows. Of course, the landing gear are fully deployed, fixed down, which is just how Altaya does them. It's one of my few complaints about them, but again, for what they cost, I'm not going to complain too loudly. Yeah, Corgi gets your gear up or down, but they cost twice as much or more. And anyway, Corgi doesn't make an NH90, so there's that. It's estimated that at least 13 nations use these to date, and it's always possible more customers will come in. But even if production stops now at a little under 400, that's still pretty successful given the whole joint project nature dating back to the 1980s. More successful than the Super Frelon at any rate. And only time will tell, you know, how these do in combat, how they end up holding up over time. But hopefully, for everyone involved who's put their money into them, with the initial bugs worked out, it'll be a good helicopter. It's designed to be. Again, it's got a low signature. Stealth was it's not stealth, but it's, you know, low return was a thing. It's designed to be very survivable for the crew in case of emergencies. Very versatile and configurable. It's very fast. It can get up to 190 miles per hour. Quite good for a helicopter of this size. But yeah, just kind of going through the French and, in this case, German and Italian helicopters as well. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them down below in the comments. Otherwise, I greatly appreciate you tuning in. This is Misha, and I will catch you very soon next time.